Hello and welcome to Uzreport World News, and my name is Bahram Gaffarov. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev's trip to Surkhandarya can undoubtedly be called landmark, as multi-million-dollar worth projects have been announced these days. A new $260 million worth solar project, International Trade Center in Termes, Pomegranate projects are only few of them. More on his trip in our next stories.
Abu Dhabi Future Energy Company, which operates under the Masdar brand, has won another tender in Uzbekistan. The UAE company is now committed to attracting $260 million worth of FDI into the construction of a solar photovoltaic plant in Sherabad district of Surkhandarya region. After a two-stage competition involving 50 companies, Masdar has offered the lowest tariff and thus has won the bidding. The Asian Development Bank provided technical and financial advice for the tender process. The annual production capacity of the plant is to be 1.04 billion kilowatt per hour. Masdar, according to a contract, will build a 457 megawatt solar photovoltaic plant, a new 220 kilowatt substation, and a 52 kilometer power line to connect the Surkhan substation. The project, upon commissioning, would save 340 million cubic meters of natural gas annually, thus providing 300,000 households with electricity. The launch of the facility is scheduled for August 2023. The opportunity to purchase electricity at a cost of 1.8 cents per kilowatt hour is a very great success for the economy of our republic and an important factor in ensuring the well-being of the population. In general, the construction of this station, the energy generated by it, and the new infrastructure will give a powerful impetus to the comprehensive development of the region, said Mirziyoyev on June the 1st as he paid a visit to the construction site. Uzbekistan's overall goal is to bring the solar generation capacity to 5 gigawatt, wind power to 3 gigawatt, and hydroelectric power to 4 gigawatt by 2030. Masdar is already running several alternative energy projects in Uzbekistan. It has recently won 2 tenders for the construction of photovoltaic power plants in Samarkand and Jizak regions.
President's visit continued with the analysis of the grain and cotton growing process in the Angar-Surkhan Pride cluster. The harvest is carried out at 4,870 hectares of land. This year, disease-resistant varieties of Russian grains were planted here. The expected yield is 80 quintals per hectare. The other 4,656 hectares is used for cotton growing. The California watering system has allowed to reduce water consumption by half. The cluster also includes vegetables and legumes. During his visit, to make sure of the equipment efficiency, the president personally tested the harvester.
President's visit to modern greenhouse in Sherabad district revealed that the complex is now expecting to export 10,000 tons of pomegranate in 3-year span. The complex, owned by Sherabad Agro Impacts, was put into operation last year. In the greenhouse, with an area of 29 hectares, it grows tomatoes, cucumbers, bell peppers, eggplants, and many more. It employs 200 local young people. Sherabad Agro Impacts has set up its branch here as well. The project worth $5 million made way for packing and processing of pomegranates. The equipment is supplied from South Korea and Slovenia. The company has a production capacity of 6,000 tons of packaging, 2,000 tons of pomegranate juice. It employs 70 people. Sherabad district grows some 30,000 tons of pomegranate annually. Of these, 8,000 tons are exported. Until recently, 2,400 hectares of pomegranates were grown in the area. This year, farmers and entrepreneurs have organized pomegranate orchards on the site of more than 3,000 hectares of cotton and grain areas with low yields. As a result, additional 3,000 new jobs were created. Over the next 3 years, the farmers expect another 18,000 tons of harvest. Export is set to reach 10,000 tons.
President Mirziyoyev, during his trip to Surkhandarya, was presented with the master plan of the Termes International Trade Center to be put into operation in 2022. A $75 million worth facility is to be erected at 26 hectares in the Termes district. The Reconstruction and Development Fund said it would provide $10 million worth of initial funds. The center would have complexes for receiving, storing, processing, sorting, and packaging products, as well as trade services, and would have its infrastructure networks. The annual turnover of the International Trade Center is expected to be around 500 million US dollars, with the volume of services amounting to 10 million US dollars. It would have an export capacity of 192 million US dollars. The location would also house 1,800 retail outlets, a logistics center with a load capacity of 50,000 tons, 2 hotels, hospitals, and car maintenance workshops. One of the strongest areas of Surkandarya region is pomegranate farming. This is a great opportunity for entrepreneurs, a source of income for the population. In the district of 48 mahallas, 33 of them specialize in growing large, tasty and productive pomegranates. The president visited pomegranate garden organized by the company Sardarbek Sultanbek in the Sharabat district. More than 30,000 pomegranates were planted on 43 hectares. One grain of this pomegranate of the Kazakh variety can hold more than 1 kilogram of seeds. Harvest for the current year is expected to exceed 1,000 tons. The transition period is a period of struggle. We must fight to change our lives, to carve a niche in the world market, to do what is beneficial. Our main goal is to increase the income of families. A family that works hard and achieves results will be prosperous, take care of their health, and raise their children well. Educated children will find their way in the future, the president said. He gave instructions to establish an institute of innovative agriculture in Surkandarya and to increase the production of lemons and dates along with the pomegranate. Currently, more than 5,000 residents of the district are engaged in growing pomegranates. President's visit also included talks with the journalists. Before moving on to the questions, you must promise me one thing. I see that you work hard. We all need to know that we are responsible for this new Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev said. The journalist of Uzreport TV, Gulnoza Kusanova, asked the president about further plans in the region to improve the living conditions of the population, to solve the problems that concern people. You should know one thing. We are reaching new heights in the new Uzbekistan. Our people are working in a difficult situation, Mirziyoyev said, and called on the media to take into account both skills. Your accomplishments should motivate people to the right path. Here is a small customs post. I came to these places a lot when I was prime minister. The human factor was very high. There were very big shortcomings in preventing risks, in making Uzbekistan's economy sustainable when there is a human factor. Now we are taking the first steps, trying to digitize all areas, reduce the human factor as much as possible, make them fair, free from corruption, said President Mirziyoyev.
Uzbekistan plans to gradually cancel the enrollment of applicants to universities through the entrance exams. The head of the Department of the State Testing Center, Farhad Mirzayev, told a press briefing on Tuesday. The decision was made on the basis of experience of foreign countries, said Mirzayev. At the first stage, this practice is to be piloted in 4 regions of Uzbekistan and then in other regions. If this proposal is accepted, we will abandon the entrance exams and gradually introduce the admission of students to universities based on the results of the exams taken in schools, Mirzayev added. Uzbekistan's Foreign Minister Abdulaziz Kamilov on Tuesday received Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Timothy Tollett, and the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Uzbekistan, Helena Fraser. During the meeting, Tollett and Fraser conveyed a personal message from the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, addressed to the Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev, inviting the head of the state to partake in the 26th UN Climate Summit.
The parties noted the Republic's active measures to preserve its ecological diversity and mitigate the negative impact of the drying up of the Aral Sea. Besides, it was emphasized that the resolution of the UN General Assembly on declaring the Aral Sea region a zone of environmental innovations and technologies portrays the readiness of the global community to support Uzbekistan's efforts in this direction.
The world in Central Asia is warming twice as fast because of the disappearance of the Aral Sea, and that is melting the glaciers, which provide Uzbekistan's water, the water for Central Asia. It's producing abnormal weather events, so much stronger winds, sandstorms, which pollute, contaminate agriculture. So the world is working with Uzbekistan to help the communities to adapt and to help lessen the impacts of the erosion of the Aral Sea. So the President's initiative is a really important one. It's part of the wider international effort, symbolised by the UN's running the multi-party trust fund on the Aral Sea. And it will be a really important part of the discussions that we will be holding, the United Kingdom will be holding on behalf of the UN in Glasgow in November.
The Aral Sea is an incredibly potent symbol of this triple planetary crisis. Mismanagement of precious natural resources, the devastating impact of pollution on human health, on the economy, and also the fact that the Aral Sea region is warming at twice the global average because of the loss of the mitigating effect of the Aral Sea. So I really commend the fact that Uzbekistan has raised the Aral Sea on the global stage and also brought together a partnership among actors both here in Uzbekistan and in the region and of course globally to try to address this using innovation, using new technologies, bringing in the best of global good practice to try to accelerate positive change for people, for planet, for prosperity in line with the Sustainable Development Goals that Uzbekistan has adopted.
The meeting also discussed the upcoming high-level international conference, Central and South Asia Regional Connectivity, Challenges and Opportunities, that is to be held in Uzbekistan's capital Tashkent on July 15 to 16.
The prices for goods and services in Uzbekistan's consumer market in May this year increased by an estimated 0.5% since the beginning of the year. The prices have leaped by 4.6% with an average monthly value of 0.9%. In annual terms, the CPI growth reached 10.9%. In the structure of consolidated CPI in annual terms for May 2021, food products continued to dominate in the price growth. In January-May 2021, food prices saw a 6.7% increase. This is 0.8% less than in the corresponding period of 2020. Non-food products year-to-date became more expensive by 2.5%. Services rose in price by 0.7%. Uzbekistan and Tajikistan authorities intend to create additional conditions to simplify the goods and passengers transportation between the states. The topic was raised within the negotiations between Uzbekistan Ministry of Transport Deputy Head Abdusamad Mominov and Tajikistan Transport Minister Azim Ibrahim on May 31, Uzbek State Department Press Service reported.
The officials paid special attention to transit and transport links development between the countries. They discussed options for improving related transport and raised international transit expanding potential issue through Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. Emphasis was primarily on the importance of the activating road transport routes through Tajikistan to People's Republic of China. Tourism Development Committee heads also discussed the Green Bus Corridor, opening issues between the cities in the border areas.
The World Health Organization approved the emergency use of Sinovac's COVID-19 vaccine on Tuesday. It's the second Chinese vaccine to be given the green light by the WHO after Sinopharm last month. The emergency listing is a signal to national regulators of a product's safety and efficacy. Results showed that Sinovac prevented symptomatic disease in more than half of those vaccinated and prevented severe COVID-19 in 100% of the study population. WHO Director Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus welcomed the vaccine's approval.
The easy storage requirements of CoronaVac make it very suitable for low-resource settings. It's now the 8th vaccine to receive EUL by WHO. It's now crucial to get these life-saving tools to the people that need them quickly.
The emergency listing allows for the vaccine to now be included in COVAX. That's a global program providing vaccines mainly to poor countries struggling with vaccine supplies. The WHO's endorsement is also a major boost for Sinovac after earlier data in clinical trials showed a wide range of efficacy rates. As of the end of May, Sinovac said it had already supplied more than 600 million doses of its vaccine at home and abroad, Many of the doses have gone to countries in Africa, Latin America, and Asia.
Moderna on Tuesday filed for full U.S. approval of its COVID-19 vaccine, making it the second drug maker in the country to do so. Currently, the company is only authorized for emergency use in the U.S., but a full approval could be an important step in diminishing vaccine hesitancy. It would also allow the vaccine maker to market their shots directly, as well as help companies and government agencies looking for vaccinations for their employees. The move by Moderna comes just weeks after rival Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech sought full approval for their COVID-19 vaccine in the United States. Moderna has an agreement with the U.S. government to supply 300 million doses of its COVID-19 vaccine, with more than 151 million doses already distributed. The company said it will continue to submit data to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration on a rolling basis over the coming weeks, with a request for a priority review. On completion of the submission, the FDA will notify the company when it is formally accepted for review.
Johnson & Johnson lost a bid Tuesday to have the Supreme Court hear an appeal over a $2.12 billion judgment against the company over allegations its baby powder contained asbestos and caused ovarian cancer in women. The justices declined to hear the case, leaving in place a lower court ruling in a lawsuit brought by 22 women. J&J maintains its products are safe. It said in a statement, quote, "Decades of independent scientific evaluations confirm Johnson's baby powder is safe, does not contain asbestos, and does not cause cancer." The Missouri Court of Appeals last year ruled against J&J's bid to throw out the compensatory and punitive damages awarded to the plaintiffs, but reduced the total to $2 billion from the $4.69 billion originally decided by a jury. J&J argued that the Missouri court's decision to consolidate different baby powder-related claims for a trial before a single jury, including claims from out of state, violated the company's due process rights. The plaintiffs, 9 of whom have since died, argued Missouri courts had jurisdiction to decide the case and said the decision to consolidate the claims was common practice. A 2018 Reuters investigation found that J&J knew for decades that asbestos, a carcinogen, was present in its talc products. The company said in May 2020 it would stop selling its baby powder talc in the United States and Canada. Justice Samuel Alito did not participate in the Supreme Court's decision, likely because he owns J&J stock. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, whose father, now retired, was a longtime lobbyist for the toiletries industry, also did not take part. The justices do not explain why they step aside in certain cases. J&J said in court papers that it faces more than 19,000 other cases that could be affected by the outcome of this litigation.
My fellow Americans, this was not a riot. This was a massacre.
Joe Biden on Tuesday became the first sitting U.S. president to visit the Tulsa, Oklahoma site where hundreds of Black Americans were massacred by a white mob 100 years ago. Public awareness of the killings has been growing in recent years after the deadly event went for decades without being taught in history classes or reported by local newspapers.
For much too long, the history of what took place here was told in silence, cloaked in darkness. But just because history is silent, it doesn't mean that it did not take place. We can't just choose to learn what we want to know and not what we should know.
On May 31st and June 1st of 1921, white residents shot and killed about 300 Black people and burned and looted homes and businesses, devastating the prosperous African-American community of Greenwood after a white woman accused a Black man of assault, an allegation that was never proven. No one was charged for the violence.
May their souls rest in peace.
Biden oversaw a moment of silence for the victims after meeting with 3 people who lived through the massacre, now between the ages of 101 and 107. The Biden administration also plans steps to combat inequality. They include efforts to expand federal contracting with small, disadvantaged businesses and invest tens of billions of dollars in communities like Greenwood that suffer from persistent poverty. Earlier in the day, Biden toured a museum dedicated to the Tulsa massacre. His visit comes during a racial reckoning in the U.S. as threats increase from white supremacist groups and the country re-examines its treatment of African Americans after last year's murder of George Floyd.
It's one of the world's largest gold mines, and now authorities in Kyrgyzstan say it's under their full control. The Kumtor mine was the largest foreign investment project in the country. Until last month, it was operated by Canada's Centerra Gold. But Kyrgyz lawmakers passed a law letting the government take control. That follows alleged environmental and safety problems. Conducting a media tour of the facility, the charges were summed up by the head of the country's Environment and Climate Committee, Dinara Kutmanova. Over 1 billion tons of waste has been dumped, she says. But Centerra President and Chief Executive Scott Perry says the company has never been asked to change its practices. He says the environmental allegations are just a pretext.
It really appears to be a concerted effort to falsely justify a nationalization of the mine. And that's really concerning. I think it's sad. You know, the leadership of the Kyrgyz Republic, they've repeatedly refused to engage with Centerra and ourselves, despite many, many attempts.
Centerra has a long history of disputes with Kyrgyzstan over how to share profits from the country's biggest industrial enterprise. Now the seizure comes after nationalist politician Sadir Japarov won a landslide presidential election victory in January. He has long supported nationalisation. Officials say the mine is working as normal and will stick to existing production targets. Centerra has begun bankruptcy proceedings for its Kyrgyz units. It says the legal action will prevent the government from trying to strip assets from the operations.
Members and allies of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, commonly referred to as OPEC+, agreed on Tuesday to stick to a plan to gradually ease supply curbs, but wouldn't say if that commitment would go beyond July. Oil producers have seen a rise in demand as the global economy bounces back from the depths of a health crisis-induced slowdown, prompting the group to revisit the record cut in production it made last year. With demand now bouncing back in the U.S. and China, the world's two biggest economies, prices have risen in tandem. U.S. crude oil prices have surged 40% so far this year. The combination of rising demand and higher prices could be too tempting for oil producers to pass up. Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman told a virtual news conference on Tuesday that with the vaccine rollout now gathering pace, there is likely to be the need for, quote, further rebalancing of the global oil market. But the group is being cautious not to flood the market and send prices into reverse. At issue, the possible return of more Iranian oil if and when Tehran reaches a nuclear deal with the West that would ease sanctions. OPEC Plus is set to meet again on July 1st. U.S. crude oil prices rose Tuesday to end the day just shy of $68 a barrel.
Married Chinese couples can now have up to 3 children. The announcement is a major shift from China's existing limit of 2. It's a response to recent data. There's been a dramatic decline in births in the country, and China's fertility rate has fallen to just 1.3 children per woman. That despite Beijing's scrapping of its one-child policy in 2016. So, why the decline? The cost of raising a child in urban China has deterred many would-be parents.
Because we're living in a big city such as Beijing, the work pace is fast, and it isn't easy to make money. The cost of time to raise a child is also high.
So, how much does it cost to have a child in China's big cities? $15,700. That's how much private clinics in China are charging women to give birth. Prenatal tests and deliveries in public hospitals are usually covered by state insurance, but resources are tight and more Chinese women are turning to private options. Up to $55,000. This is how much a postpartum center in Beijing can cost per month. As Chinese incomes rise, women are flocking to facilities like this for professional care and services. Well-off families also typically hire an in-house nursemaid to look after the mother and baby in the first month, at roughly $2,300. Housing costs in Beijing's Haidian, a district with good schools, hover around $14,000 per square metre, on par with median prices in Manhattan. Those not eligible for public schools because they lack a hukou or residency permit must attend private schools, which cost roughly $6,000 to $39,000 per year. Anxious parents, most of them investing in their only child, sign kids up for private tutoring and to extracurriculars such as piano, tennis or chess classes. And competition is fierce. In order to ease pressure on children and boost birth rates by lowering family education costs, China has launched a clampdown on the country's booming private tutoring industry. An average family living in Shanghai's upscale Yinjiang district spends roughly $131,000 per child from birth through to junior high school, which typically ends at age 15. That's according to a 2019 Shanghai Academy of Social Sciences report. The report says low-income families in the same areas spend over 70% of their earnings on the child. High costs and the pressures of having grown up as only children, as well as the expectation that they'll support their parents, have made many young people in China reluctant to have kids of their own.
Two ancient Thai relics have finally returned home. The Khmer-style stone carvings were stolen decades ago and smuggled to the United States, where they had been on display at the Asian Arts Museum in San Francisco. The museum was required to forfeit them after a settlement was reached in February this year between the US government and San Francisco authorities. A member of the Lintel Repatriation Committee, Tanongsak Hanwong, believes the case will set a precedent.
This is a legal battle that has set an excellent example for the museums that still own Thai artifacts illegally, because they know they will lose the case. Many museums have chosen to reach out to begin the return process instead of going into the legal process. It will make it a lot easier in the future for the Thai to retrieve our artifacts.
The sandstone lintels, which date back to the 10th and 11th century, were once parts of religious sanctuaries in Thailand's northeast. The Thai government will assess whether they can be returned to their original locations.
Stocks on Wall Street refrained from making big moves Tuesday as declines in healthcare shares offset gains in energy and financial stocks. Investors didn't get big trading signals from economic data. The Institute for Supply Management reported that U.S. manufacturing picked up in May, but noted that companies faced labor and raw materials shortages. The Dow rose a modest 0.1%, while the S&P 500 and NASDAQ finished just below the break-even line. DataTrek Research co-founder Nick Colas says investors are looking ahead and bracing for Friday's jobs report.
There's a big question mark around the Friday jobs report, trying to understand if it's going to be weak like the last month was and kind of reassure us that rates are going to stay low, or is it going to come storming back and the 10-year goes to 1.7 or 1.8% and stocks come under some pressure. So I think we're going to be in a holding pattern for a couple of days.
Optimism over the U.S. outlook for fuel demand this summer drove oil prices higher on Tuesday, and that in turn pumped up shares of big oil companies like Chevron and ConocoPhillips. ExxonMobil rose more than 3%, making it the S&P's biggest gainer. Abbott Laboratories, on the other hand, was the biggest decliner on the S&P, dropping 9%. The drug maker cut its full-year profit forecast, dragging down the healthcare sector. It projects revenue from its COVID-19 diagnostic tests will fall sharply as more Americans get inoculated. Meme stocks extended their torrid rally from the previous week. AMC Entertainment shares shot up nearly 23% after the theater chain said it sold $230 million of its stock.
So far, these have been the latest news for today. Goodbye. Take care.